So we are going to jump right into reflecting on these two scriptures today. There's a lot happening in these few lines, both from the Old Testament. So I don't know how many of you had a chance to maybe watch The Way. Has anybody had a chance to watch that yet? Yeah, Nancy, I know you watched it. Anybody else? Again, you can get, Mel, you watched it? Oh, yeah, you were with me. Hello. So it is available, again, several different streaming places that you can go to. But it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I probably say that about every single scene. But so I want to set it up really quickly so that those of you who haven't seen the movie, that you certainly can still imagine this. Absolutely. I hope it's just as meaningful, for sure. So, Tom, again, I'm looking around to see, just in case some people haven't been around or haven't heard the story, Tom is an ophthalmologist whose son went on a pilgrimage to went on the Camino de Santiago de Compostela, which is the place where the kind of the pilgrimage site where it's still today, I think 490,000 certificates were given in 2024 of people who went on this pilgrimage. Anyway, and so in this movie, his son goes, and the father is very unhappy about it. Tom is very unhappy because the son was in med school, and he's quitting med school, and he's just going to go walk, for hundreds of miles, and he just can't figure it out, doesn't understand it. And then the son gets killed in a storm by himself on the very first day out. And so Tom goes over there, identifies the body, ends up then was not going to go walking, right? So imagine all you'd have to prepare if you're going to walk. It's from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, if I say that correctly, it's 775 kilometers to walk. So he was not prepared, but his son had many things, and so he ends up then taking this box with his son's ashes and all of the equipment that his son had put together and begins walking this very long journey. And so one of the very first nights he's walking, of course, sometimes when you're on a long walk like that, even those of us who just hike, without being a pilgrimage, sometimes you run across somebody and then you hike together for a little while, and then they maybe go a different path or they go a little different speed, and then you just kind of go on your own. So he is going, and there are places in real life, there are places that provide shelter and food for pilgrims on this specific pilgrimage route. And so Tom arrives, I think it's one of his very first days of walking, pretty overwhelmed, right? Still obviously just wrapped in grief. And I'm sure thinking, what am I doing? Why am I out here? What's going to happen? And maybe he doesn't even care about what's going to happen. Maybe he doesn't even care because his wife had already died previously, and then his only son. So maybe he didn't even care what was going to happen to him. So he obviously was not in a great place, and he was very isolated. And so he walks along, and he sees a thing, oh yes, the sign that says that, come here, we provide food or shelter for pilgrims. And so he follows it in, he walks in, and there's this table, and it's all set, and there's all these people just sitting there talking. And they're talking pretty animatedly. And so they're talking about different histories, and you can hear there's different languages going on at this table, and everyone's just talking, and there's all this bounty of food, and they're all talking and laughing, but then there's a little bit, well, wait a minute, no, I don't think that's good. Oh, yes, it is, and then they drink some wine or they have some food. And so Tom takes all this in when he walks up to this beautiful outdoor courtyard I'm assuming he's still in France at that point. And so he walks in, and I love that because I've often felt like that's heaven. Like that, there it is, right there, right? That it's going to be this huge table. I don't know if it's literal or figurative, right? but I think maybe literal. This huge table where all people are sitting, and everybody speaks a different language, and we have different clothing or different mannerisms. They have different beliefs, different opinions. That's kind of a thing right now, right? In our world today. But yet, everyone is still able to talk and laugh and love and share. So I love that part of that section of the movie. And then my favorite part is when Tom walks up and he kind of looks like, oh, am I interrupting? Like, I don't know what's happening here. And the host gets up and he turns and he says, oh, we were expecting you. And you can see Tom just kind of looks like, okay, wait a minute, I didn't know until yesterday that I was going to be walking this path. So how could you be expecting me? And then he realizes that the man was saying, like, yes, every single person that lives or that walks up our drive, we're expecting you. Like, yes, we want you to be a part of our meal. We want to provide hospitality to you. And then the other part that I love about the movie, and again, I don't think I'm spoiling it too much, is that throughout the journey and at this table is I think the first time this happens, that he's sitting there and he's listening and he's eating this food and he's weary from his journey, but yet he's listening, a little overwhelmed, I think, of all these people from different places, everyone talking and kind of arguing a little bit, but again in a respectful way. And then all of a sudden he kind of like has to blink and he looks closer and he can see his son sitting there. His son sitting there at this table where he would have been if he would have lived, probably. He would have stopped at that same house. And again, to me, it just brought on, was the actual son actually there? Probably not. Physically, probably Tom was just imagining him being there. But yet, don't we believe that that's what's happening? When we have All Saints Sunday, or even when we just take communion every week, don't we believe that all of those spirits and souls that have gone on before, people from this church that we didn't even know, somebody's great-great-grandmother that some of you have been around that were here, or someone else that we have never even necessarily met, or our loved ones that we absolutely miss and love, that table is big enough somehow in God's miraculous way for all to be there. So I think of that sometimes on Thanksgiving or some big meals or birthday parties. Do you ever have that? Where you're there and it's nice, but then you almost can just picture the people that have died that are now in heaven, that you can actually just picture them and actually maybe feel their presence there. And what a comfort that is, that we know that eventually that is going to be a reality, that we'll actually be able to see them and hug them again. So I love that scene. I think that can be so impactful for all of us on our journey to be able to picture what that heavenly banquet is going to be like. The Art of the Pilgrimage is a book that I've been referring to several times, and again, I highly recommend it. But there's a really interesting story, or kind of almost like a poem. He describes a pilgrimage to France of a son, so again, similar to the movie, but and it's a poet and screenwriter Richard Bebon. And his father, he was on this journey, and his father was there, but who had been diagnosed with cancer. And so the man says it was not an easy trip, but one day, he says, finally, he took his father shopping at the oldest market in Paris, and later that evening cooked him a simple meal. Afterward, he wrote down a few observations that became a poem called My Father and I Shopped. And so this is the poem. When we returned to our rented flat, he napped, tired from the short walk. I sliced 2 large tomatoes in rounds, drained them, picked basil, dried the muted green leaves, sliced the spongy white mozzarella. Can't you picture all of this? Remembering the way he sliced salami when he was young. Praise, paper thin, an astonishing number of slices. from a single stubby sausage. On 2 white porcelain plates, I interweave tomato, mozzarella, basil. When I heard him in the bathroom shaking out the ration of pills that were buying him the extra days, I drizzled olive oil over the salads, set them on the table with red linen napkins with polished silver. Before he ate, he photographed the plate. Isn't that a beautiful, again, way of us taking time to be able to just appreciate life, appreciate the time we have, appreciate the people that are there, and those small things, right? Because how many of us would go, yeah, I'll slap a sandwich together, right? Or even if we take time to make a nice meal, to be able to just appreciate, look at that. I mean, I could just picture, I almost put a picture up and I thought, no, because it's so beautifully described. The white plate, that red tomato, can't you picture it? And then that piece of spongy mozzarella and that little bit of basil on top. Just taking the time to appreciate a simple meal, a colorful meal, time together, no matter what it is that you're eating, time together as well. He takes a snapshot of it, right? To take a snapshot of the deliciousness of shared love. And I wonder, what snapshots of life or love do we savor along the way? Whether it be literally a snapshot or one conjured in our memory or our imaginations. These visions that give us hope and strength to continue on the way. Maybe it's something of something past. Maybe it's something of future. Or better yet, it's something of this moment today. Where am I? What's a moment that I want to take just a mental snapshot right now of loving faces? Loving faces are people, are friends watching from home. Or just a special, just a simple meal. But it tastes so good. We were truly hungry, and that food satisfied that. Or just a time, someone's listening to me, truly listening to me. And I want to appreciate that. I know I'm talking a lot about movies. I sound like it's all I watch, but I watched a short the other day that it was one of those made me ugly ball cry, okay? It has Miriam Margolyes, is that how you say her name? British actress, and it's 20 minutes, I think. It's a short, but it was nominated for an Oscar. I think that's why it popped up somehow on my YouTube. So I'm like, 20 minutes, I was waiting for something. I'll watch it. And it's this gorgeous, gorgeous short film of this older woman, and then she befriends a younger a person, and their relationship. And she says, you are the first person out of all the other people that she has been in her life that actually sees me and accepts her for who she is. And it's just this beautiful moment. So if you have a chance, even just for 20 minutes, it's called Dorothy's Friend, or something like that, Dorothy's Friend. But we get kind of the same image when we see Psalm 37 that Paul read. Again, thank you, Paul, for being liturgist. I appreciate it so much. God holding our hand on a journey. And the poetry, because we know, again, that Psalm 37, many of the Psalms are poems. Many of them are songs, actually. And I'm taking a class, a workshop, I don't know, in another month or so, on singing the Psalms. Because that's how they would have done it when these were first written. But anyway, so it's kind of like a one-line trip down memory lane, right? When I was young, I have been old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken. So it's like this little a walk down memory lane, if you will. The cycle of life, right, of being handed down. When I was young, when I was old. And again, imagine what that would look like. Even just thinking of handed down. So think of the hands. Again, I was going to put a picture up, and I thought, no, I want people to actually picture. What are the hands that held you? Can you think of some people that probably held you? Maybe you don't know necessarily, but I bet you can think of some. Hands that held you when you were a baby, or hands that held your hand when you were out walking or at the park, or maybe you can think of specific times as you were getting older. And then what are the people that you have held other people's hands? Maybe it may be in a hospice situation. Maybe you've held hands in marriages. I mean, think of all the other people that hands have been involved, that you have held different people. In love, right? When you're hand holding, that's a sign of love. Maybe it's not necessarily, I mean, it could be platonic love, right? Certainly. But it still is a sign of love. Here, let me help you. Someone does this to you. Jesus puts his hands out to you. That's a loving gesture. And then we move to Isaiah, again, written at a time when the Hebrew people were down and out with little power and less money. And to hear about the necessities of life in abundance, again, must have just been crazy, like so hopeful. Here, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. Everybody who thirsts. My song that I sang this morning for the prelude. Again, yeah, everybody who's just down and out, who wears like this mantle of grief, whether it's, again, in your spirit, or whether it's a state of the world, or whether it's your own, health issues, or whatever it is. Everybody has things, a grief that they're carrying. And the Bible reminds us that Jesus is there. Welcome, all who thirst, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come buy and eat. And I don't think, again, that he necessarily is meaning money. I think he means like having hope. Those who you don't have any hope. It's okay. Come to Jesus. He will provide. It's all right. I think about Tom's character again back at that movie. That at first I think it was only the food that interested him. He'd been walking all day. But then the community around him as that scene unfolds, and especially I think when he senses the presence of his deceased son, begins to feed his weary soul. If we hang on to what we have out of fear, but then if we refuse to receive loving kindness and help people when we need it the most, or when they need it the most, then we're missing out. And again, remember how Paul concluded that Isaiah reading. But our ways are not your ways, says the prophet. And isn't that something that we need to be reminded of all the time? I know I've shared this before, but a friend of Margaret Mills, a pastor in Elmore, that she ends every single prayer that we meet every month when we meet in my Excellence in Ministry group. You are God and we are not. You are in control and we are not. And for that we are eternally grateful. And it's such a wonderful reminder, isn't it? Over and over again. Your ways, God, are not our ways. If we're committed to following the way of the divine, the way of Jesus, then we need to surrender. Surrender our worries. Surrender to the goodness of God and the goodness of the table. And know that God is expecting us. So Lent can point out the distance between a yearned-for communion of all people and what we actually experience here on this earth. I understand that. It's not just like rose-colored glasses. I get it. But Isaiah also says that when we seek God, we come to know God's ways. And we also come to know that we are invited to partake again in the richness of life. On this Communion Sunday, these themes, I think, are so important around the table, again, in full display, when we think of that line that is just impossible to forget. We were expecting you, which means, of course, you are welcome wherever you are. Where have you been? Wherever. It doesn't matter. Come in. Sit. All are welcome.